All right, I'd like to call to order the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Truckee Donner Public Utility District. Today is Wednesday, April 1st, 2026, and it is 6 p.m. Martina, roll call, please.
Here. Director Bender.
Here.
Director Randall.
Yes.
Vice President Morrell.
Here.
President Laliotis.
Here. All right, Jeff, would you lead us in the pledge tonight?
Yes. Thank you. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Any changes to the agenda tonight, Brian?
There are no changes.
Excellent, thank you. All right, we'll move on to public comment. This is time set aside for the public to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda tonight. Testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed at the time that that item is considered. Is there any public comment tonight? All right, seeing none, we will close public comment and move on to director updates. Jeff?
Great meeting on Monday. Good to see everyone again. And here we are, April Fool's Day.
All right. Krista?
I do have a few things I want to mention tonight. Good evening. Good to see everybody again. Twice in 1 week. We are lucky. First of all, not this Friday, but the next Friday, April 10th, is a CTA quarterly meeting. So that's the meeting that's sort of open to the public and to all the members that we meet 4 times a year. This is our project incubator meeting, which is kind of our attempt to more efficiently and effectively harness the resources in that room and pair them with the needs in that room. So it's another, we're trying a lot of different things and seeing what is the most helpful for everybody. And while I'm on the subject, this month's Truckee Magazine has a pretty large article on the CTA, which I didn't know about until I opened it up this week. And so it's a really good overview of how we came to be, what our goals are, what's happening with it now. And I would love it if everybody had a chance to read it. I think you all get this in your mailbox. That's where I got mine. So there was that. And as long as I'm on climate news, just some good climate news to combat all the doom and gloom out there. First of all, little factoid, the cost of lithium-ion batteries has fallen 99% since 1991. So that's a pretty dramatic, it's a pretty long timeline, granted, but right now it's on fire. Battery technology is really, and I didn't mean that literally. Sorry. That was very wrong metaphor. I apologize for that. But anyway, it's amazing. And from our friends at Optics and Photonics News, new triple junction solar cells have achieved a new record certified power conversion efficiency of 30%, which breaks the old record of 27%. So that is quite amazing. Turns out also our solar panel lifespan is longer than we originally thought it was. So they're outliving their 20 years, their 25 years, their 30 years. So that's also good news. All of the UK has mandated rooftop solar and heat pumps for all new construction starting in 2028. Good climate news. And finally, a little news for the water side, because we always forget you guys. I know, right? We don't forget. There just isn't as much, But there is going on, Brian mentioned at our last meeting, the forever chemicals and how we're nervously anticipating some mandates about that. Maybe, maybe not, but we do need to clean up our act there. And there are, this was just this week's news, again, physics.org is this. University of Bath in England has created a bio-based polymer that's capable of efficiently and affordably capturing forever chemicals. So it captures about 94% of PFOs in its testing, and quickly, and they're washable and reusable. So they're fibers that swell up in water and and capture the ferrochemicals. And that's right on the heels of news out of Rice University in Korea, who has a different filtering system that they think is extremely effective and cost-effective as well. So lots of things happening, lots of people still putting their minds to some of the big problems challenges that we are facing. So thanks for your time, and onwards with what we do.
Thank you. Just want to thank staff and the rest of the board for Monday's workshop meeting. I thought it was very productive, so thank you. And that is all I have. So with that, we will move on to department updates.
Good evening, President Laliotis, members of the board. Mike Swanson reporting out for electric engineering and operations. So we'll dive right into our reliability metrics. We had another great month. Looking at our year-to-date stats, our frequency, we're 97% improved over 2025. Of all of our customers, how long were they out? We're 95% improved. And on Katie, we're a little worse, but this is a volume metric. So the more we have, the more opportunities we have to respond faster. And then down below, you can see the February results. So while the electric team would love to take a lot of credit for all this, I think this is a lot to do with what the weather has been giving us this year. So here are the key drivers. For unplanned outages, we only impacted 88 customers the entire month. You can see the biggest one there was the snow unloading for 57 customers. That was out an hour. And we did have a tree fall through the lines, 21 customers for a little under 10 hours. And we did only have one planned outage, 26 customers, 3 hours and 13 minutes. That was for a transformer that needed replaced. You do see no hot tubs on there this month, right? And for our power provider outages, we had the Glenshire outage impacted all of our customers on Glenshire Circuit, 516 customers that were out for 47 minutes. We did do our line sensor deployment on March 17th through the 19th. We installed 376 gridware devices, which included 3 weather stations. They were on the Truckee 5 in the Prosser Lakeview, Prosser Lake Heights area, on Donner Lake 2 circuits, the south and west end of Donner Lake, and Martis Valley 1, its portion of Sierra Meadows. We weren't quite able to finish that entire circuit with the quantity we had. We're leveraging these devices, looking at the weather stations, monitoring our system conditions. We haven't had any events yet. I hate to say it, but I'm kind of looking forward to having an event so I can see how this technology works. We're also developing protocols and proactively addressing issues that are identified, and we're working out those protocols with how we receive the calls, what calls we receive, what calls we dispatch. So a lot of work being done on the back end to make sure this is a successful project. And then our key focus, again, we remain system hardening, wildfire mitigation, grid modernization and technology integration, reliability performance improvements, and then our capital project execution, that's mainly our Martis Valley substation, and electric system master plan advancements. And as I spoke about at the retreat, this is the master plan is what's going to guide our future investments. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jillian.
Thanks, Mike.
Good evening, President Laliotis, members of the board. Jillian Stewart here for HR and Risk. First up is our recognition for this month. We have Mark Costa and Forrest Heston. They showed great accountability to their coworkers when they took on the gym upgrade project. Both of them were involved in the project early on, but they took responsibility for parts that utilized their different strengths. Forrest started the conversation about replacing some of the out-of-date and unused items in the gym and took it to leadership. The project felt collaborative from the start because he gathered input from people who currently use the gym to make sure everyone was involved in making decisions and their different workout needs were met. After a list of equipment was compiled, Mark worked on pricing equipment out and putting together a proposal. He also figured out ahead of time how everything would fit in the space and avoid overcrowding issues we had with the old gym equipment to make sure we didn't order anything that wouldn't be useful. Their teamwork and determination meant this project got done quickly. Thanks to the team's hard work and accountability, we now have a great wellness resource here at the office that we can all enjoy. Next up is our event recap for March. So we had our St. Patty's Day potluck. You can see a lot of green-themed food there. And then we had our third annual ski day. Most of the pictures were in the parking lot because there wasn't a lot of snow to be had, and it was a pretty warm day, so we enjoyed kind of sunbathing and a couple of turns in the snow. Good barbecue weather. I mentioned this training at the retreat on Monday. This is our HAZWOPER training that we had with the new safety consultants. And so as you can see with these pictures here, it was a really hands-on training versus classroom setting or online module, dressed up scenarios, use the equipment, and the feedback was very positive in this training. So we're glad to see that we're able to get it more engaged and more impactful. Next up, under our Charging Futures Forward initiative, the district was recently awarded the Northwest Public Powers Association's Paul J. Raver Community Service Award for our Charging Futures Forward initiative. This award is given to an organization that has shown superior leadership and betterment of cities, locales, states, or regions. And we'll be going in May to receive this award. On that same theme, Tech Teams is part of that Charging Futures Forward initiative, and we had that just last week where local high school students came out to learn about the different technology here at the district. And so there's a couple of pictures there where they were with our water department, learning about SCADA, and then even out in the field this year, learning some different technologies in the electric department. Under Charging Communities Forward, last month with our Charging Communities Forward Fund, staff was able to donate $430 to support the Sierra Community House Empty Bowls event, an overall hunger relief program. This donation equals about 180 meals for our community. And again, this was just staff-generated funds to be able to donate to our local community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. Who's up next? Stephen.
Good evening, President Waliotis, members of the board, Public Information and Strategic Affairs here. On the communications and outreach side of the house, and I want to thank Alex for all the hard work. This is our kind of recap a little bit of the first third of the year's communications and the things we focus on in our campaigns and channels. Typically, it's winter. We have a campaign around living the mountain lifestyle, and winter tips and adopt a hydrant are parts of that. And we did both. Every year we do a joint press release and advertising campaign with Truckee Fire on adopt a hydrant. And we did, in preparation of the February storm, do an all customer email kind of saying, hey, we have a big storm coming in. Again, wanting to help our customers be prepared. Second slide really talks about our Value of Public Power and Water campaign. And it's hard to get these messages out in the middle of wildfire season or, when things are really happening. So we take advantage of these times to do that. We did a January board recap that talked about that. We promoted the GFOA Financial Transparency Award. That's on the right there that we received, and we did a press release on that, and that was picked up by the Sun and ran in print and online, so we appreciate that. Capitol Day social post, that's on the left there. We go every year, every month, every week it feels like, to Sacramento. But every year we all go together for one full day, and it's kind of Power and Water's Capitol Day, and we meet with our elected officials and the regulators and key influencers, policymakers, et cetera. And that on the left is our team meeting with Assemblymember Hadwick, and she's in the middle on the left there. And we Also have a new print ad coming out that's in the middle there, that you'll be seeing in the Sun and the Moon and Shire and the other print channels that we continue to work with. And then on customer programs and education, we always advertise around Smart Hub, my account, the tool for our customers to really log in and engage with us. And so that's evergreen, and we continue to, I think, as Alex said, be repetitive but not redundant, and try to, bring it out in different ways where we can. And then we have print ads that are running for our customer programs, along with digital, and we touched on all of this on KTKE in our efforts there with our 30-second spots, and then the interviews we do as 2 ways we engage with them. And then Charging Futures Forward program, we did do outreach around the board scholarship program, and that just closed for the college-bound seniors. So we did what we could to kind of put that out there. And then we supported Placer County partner agencies doing a hazard mitigation plan. We did one with Nevada County last year. We're an annex in each of these plans. And part of that responsibility is to help promote and seek customer input. And so they had a draft plan in a meeting. So we targeted an email at our customers in Placer County, inviting them to attend that. On the strategic affairs side, I'll go kind of quickly, but we continue to work with our joint action groups in Sacramento and in DC. Key energy issues are the Water Board wildfire general order that's coming up for vote pretty soon. And while much improved, there's still issues. They did exempt wild urban areas, which is one of our major asks, and that's a big improvement for us, but there's issues there. The Advanced Clean Fleets rule continues to be a problem. We've been waiting for 15-day language for 90 days now. So we're waiting to see what happens there. Wildfire liability, that's a big issue everywhere, but that'll be our major lobbying point in Washington, D.C. when we go out there in a month. And then electric market regionalization is also very impactful. It's an opportunity, but we got to make sure we navigate it right. On the water side, we've talked about the new regulation, making conservation a California way of life. And we're working on our early summer and late summer garden events and new customer programs to help us and everyone comply. And then we talked a little bit about potential regulations, and so we're tracking that. And then in terms of upcoming meetings, the general manager and I will be at a UAMPS meeting in St. George, and they've asked us to present on wildfire mitigation and communications. And California obviously leading with, the Intermountain West states recognizing that they need to develop that as well. We've been invited to present at the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board workshop in Sacramento. Wildfire again, but more on risk reduction in the work we're doing there. And then we do have the Northern California Power Agency and Northwest Public Power Authority Federal Policy Conference end of April in DC. And I'll end there. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. Good evening, Mike. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, President Laliotis, members of the board. Mike Salmon, CFO for the district. This is public hearing item number 8, consideration of adoption of the annual electric and water standby charges. Each year, the board is required to adopt 2 resolutions continuing electric and water standby charges. Further, we need to have 2 resolutions authorizing the counties of one for each county for Nevada and Placer counties to collect the charges on the annual property tax bills. Standby charges have been assessed on vacant parcels since 1975 here at the district. They recoup the district's operating and maintenance costs. They're from parcel owners who benefit from the vacant lot being in close proximity to the distribution facilities, electric or water. Electric standby charge is $20 per year for each parcel 1 acre or larger, or $10 per year for parcels that are less than 1 acre. The water standby charge is $80 per year regardless of parcel size. This public hearing was set at the March 4th, 2026 regular board meeting and advertised in the Sierra Sun newspaper on March 20th and 27th of this year. The district standby rates have not changed in many years. There's no changes proposed at this time. We're continuing the existing charges. California law, the Uniform Standby Charge Procedures Act, requires an increase in standby charge that would require a majority vote of the affected property owners or 2/3 vote of all owners. So it's a pretty high bar, a Prop 218 process plus. So for sure. As far as fiscal impact goes, that's presented here. For electric, it's, in Nevada County, it's $15,000, and for water, about $90,000, and about 75 parcels in Placer County, 44, the majority being water. Total is $110,000, and that's consistent with what's in the budget. So the recommendation is in 2 parts. A, to conduct a public hearing to accept comments on establishing electric and water standby charges. And then B, adopt the following resolutions. Resolution 2026-06, continuing and fixing electric standby charges for the fiscal year 2026-27. Resolution 2026-07, continuing and fixing water standby charges for the fiscal year 2026-2027. Resolution 2026-08, requesting collection of electric and water standby charges on Nevada County tax roll. And then Resolution 2026-09, fixing and placing electric and water standby charges on Placer County tax roll for collection. With that, I'll turn it back to President Laliotis. Thank you.
Yes, I
was just going to recommend that you open the public hearing before discussion and accepting public comment.
Yes, absolutely. First off, I apologize. I thought you were going up there to do your department update.
I
So.
did too.
I was like, we're doing it.
So we are on item 8, as you might know. So thank you, Mike. So it is 6:23. I'd like to open the public hearing on item 8 related to the adoption of the annual electric and water standby charges. All right. Is there any public comment at this time on the public hearing? No? All right. Any board discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. We haven't increased the fees for, since 75, I think I heard you say. And I know increasing the fees would be a big expense in terms of public, getting it out to the public and all that kind of stuff. But could there be an inflation factor put on that $10 fee that would incorporate into a resolution moving forward so that you could get an increase each year but not have to go through the whole noticing process?
Great questions. Thank you, Director Randall. I believe the current, at least for the water side, the $80 has been at that rate since 1991, whereas the charges in general started in the mid 70s. And then I know that there is quite a bit of California-specific laws with respect to the process and those changes. And as I recall, and I would defer to Council Gross, but I believe we cannot do an inflation factor in our plan, which would make perfect sense. But that would be increasing it each year. And but I would defer to Council Gross.
It's a great question, great concept. Prop 218 does say that any new or increased assessment, and these standby charges are considered an assessment under Prop 218, must go through an approval process. So even adding just an inflationary increase would be an increase to those charges that would require the Prop 218 compliance, which in effect would require us to have an engineer's study performed for each water and electric to determine the benefit to each property as a result of these charges. And then there would have to be a ballot distributed by the district to the property owners, and the property owners would have to affirmatively approve that increase by a majority vote. So it's different than water rates under Prop 218, where customers have to have a majority protest to prevent the district from increasing fees. So this process actually requires the district to have the voters approve that increase. So great question, great concept. We can do it, but we'd have to go through that process.
Every year.
Every year that you'd want to have that increase.
Well, I guess.
I think you could have an inflationary increase approved to say, here's, it'd be a maximum 2% or 3% per year. And I think that would be acceptable on a one-time approval without going back every year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because in water, we approve a 5-year rate plan typically. I know we have to, but we don't have to do a 218 every 5 years, although we adopt the rate every year. Is there a limit on how many years forward you can?
So you're correct. We do that, and there's a specific provision under what's called the Prop 218 Omnibus Implementation Act, provision of the government code that allows us to adopt water rates with, or sewer rates if we provided sewer service, with an inflationary increase, provided that the increase is set to a very specific formula that could be followed, or a specific increase, and the maximum is for 5 years. So that's why we'll typically set rates with and then have a 5-year adjustment before we go through another rate evaluation, rate study, and adjustment process. That is not the same for assessments. So there is no similar statute that applies to that assessment process under 218.
Jeff? Good? This side?
The most educational standby charge meeting I've attended. Yeah, and just shedding light on the process for changing the standby charges. I have wondered, exactly what was entailed, and it's actually quite a lot. So thank you for that.
Okay, one last call for public comment tonight. Okay. Thank you, board, for your discussion. And with that, I will close the public hearing at 6:28. And we have a recommendation from staff.
I will move staff's recommendation.
I'll second that.
All right, motion is second. Let's do roll call today.
And just to be clear, the staff recommendation is approval of all 4 of the listed resolutions, 2026-06, 2026-07, 2026-08, and 2026-09.
Correct.
Correct. As presented on the agenda.
Director Finn,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Randall,
Yes.
Vice President Morrell,
Yep.
President Lalliadas.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar tonight. Items 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And is there any public comment on the consent calendar tonight? All right, seeing none, is there any board discussion items you'd like to pull?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item number 12, the resolution 2026-03 to request election services. I want to pull that for clarification and discussion.
Okay. So we have pulled item 12, and we will take on the rest of the consent calendar, items 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14. Is there any public comment on those items? All right, seeing none, any board discussion on 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14 on the consent calendar? Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved. The consent calendar, 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 12, Resolution 2026-03 to request election services.
Okay, great. So I pulled this off because I was surprised that we had 25K allotted to election services, as this is a county election. We are a special district within Nevada County and parts of Placer. And so I'm curious and what those expenses go toward. I mean, even the candidates pay a fee. And it is run by the county. So can you elaborate a little bit, and this is for the public benefit also, of what the role is for the PD? What is that money going toward? Is that toward sending out ballots, or what is involved in that?
So I'd be happy to answer that, Director Moreau. It's a wonderful question. We are paying each county, Nevada County and Placer County, for their services in conducting the election. So we consolidate our election with the general election. The county then conducts the election. Most typically, special districts within the counties will consolidate, and they all contribute then to the costs, and it generally reduces the costs for each agency. But what you're paying for is the cost for county election staff to prepare and distribute all of the election materials. There's a significant cost to that publication and distribution. And then it also includes the cost to canvass or tally the election results and provide those to us. So that's essentially what we're paying for, is the county to provide all of those services that if we didn't pay the county to provide and we wanted to conduct our own election, the district would have to pay its own cost, which would likely be greater than the charges to pay for consolidation and consolidated services.
And then that, I guess that would be true of any participating agency, town of Truckee, sewer, airport. They all have their contributing fee
Yes.
to run to everything that you said per their area. Okay.
That's correct. And as you notice, our fees for Placer County are significantly less than they are for Nevada County because we have far less territory, far few voters in Placer County.
Good. That's good clarity for me. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other board discussion on item 12 tonight? Any public comment on item 12 tonight? All right, seeing none. Do we have a motion to approve item 12 on the consent calendar?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Krista got it. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Great question. All right, move on to our first action item of the night. Consideration of professional services contract with Probolsky Research for the 2026 District Customer Survey. This is item 15.
Good evening again, President Laliotis, members of the board, Stephen Poncelet. Action item 15. The district has periodically conducted formal customer surveys using research firms with expertise in developing and implementing meaningful and statistically valid surveys. The last one the district conducted was in 2020 and done by Probolsky Research. The survey methodology was based on obtaining a margin of error of plus or minus 5% with a confidence level of 95%. That's statistics talk for the mathematicians in the room. And it's achieved essentially by getting and talking to a cross-section of our customer base that represents the proportion of the customer base that they are. Typically, for our community of our size, they contact about 1,000 district customers to get 400 approximately valid responses, which gives the confidence level across the cross-section of our customer base. It is offered in both English and Spanish, and it maximizes accuracy while minimizing bias. The customer survey measured customer satisfaction, service priorities, communication preferences, and community expectations for the district's electric and water utilities. About 75% of the questions are common for almost all of these surveys across the industry, and they do allow for comparison against other utilities and then for us to trend over time asking the same questions. About 25% of the questions related to the district's process of developing a strategic plan and board strategic initiatives. So for this survey, there's a strategic question of, what do we want to ask the community? And so I invite the board to think about that, and we'll be reaching out to you individually to get your inputs. Once that's done, then Probolsky Research takes off, does it all, and their presentations are quite impressive. And the goal of customer survey was to provide clear, actionable data to guide decisions, and that remains true today. So staff believe it's time to conduct another survey, and we do recommend Probolsky Research for the survey again. They're familiar with the district. They've conducted numerous surveys for our sister agencies since we first brought them into the community 5 years ago. They've done thousands of these surveys and have a large experience targeted on governments and specifically utilities as well. And they can effectively administer the historical trending data and everything, so that becomes very cost effective. District Code Title III, Section 3.08.050, Specialized Services, allows for purchasing of specialized services, and staff believes this falls under that procurement provision. We requested a proposal from Probolsky Research for the 2026 TDPUD customer survey. Proposal was for a fixed firm cost a little less than $30,000, and that was the same cost as 5 years ago. And so I think that reflects some of the efficiencies of staying with the same firm. Customer survey is planned for this spring and would involve a process for reviewing and updating the survey questions as discussed previously. Final survey results would be brought back to the board in a public meeting and again made available so we can look at it and learn from it and respond to it. And Probolsky Research is eager to continue working with the district. The requested contract authorization of $32,725 was included in the approved fiscal year 26 and 27 budgets under the GL listed there. Each year had $30,000. This is slightly over that for this year only because of the 10% contingency, which we don't expect to use, but it's good to have if we decide we want a little more or something else. And the overage is believed to be well accounted for account 923 in this fiscal year. And the recommendation is to authorize the general manager to execute a professional services contract with Probolsky Research for the 2026 TDPUD customer survey in the amount of $29,750. Plus a 10% change order authorization of $2,975 for a total not to exceed contract amount of $32,725. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Stephen. All right. Is there any public comment on this item tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to director comments. Krista?
Sure, just a few questions and comments. Is there a sort of typical or recommended frequency that we should be doing these surveys that's sort of industry-wide, or is that really just strictly up to us?
I would think 3 to 5 years, kind of. It depends on the frequency of how quickly things change. And then they do cost money and staff time, so there is a budgetary consideration as well. We did do hire Provolsky in between this period to do a detailed employee survey. And so sometimes there are some trade-offs that we make.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely time for, I feel like it's been 6 years since we last checked in with the community on how they're, managing things. So I think it's, I think it is absolutely a good time to do that. Will we have another opportunity as a board? You said you would reach out individually to board members about things that they might want included in this survey. Are we going to have a chance as a board to cull questions or brainstorm questions or approve of each other's questions? Or is it just, one-on-one and you guys will do that collating for us?
I think initially, Stephen's going to reach out to the board individually just to understand what types of information board members are looking for from our ratepayers. And then we would come back to the board prior to issuing the survey so that the board has an opportunity to see what's going out there to the public and get kind of some final comments if there was anything missed there. So before Mr. Pobolski goes out and gives his team the green light to go out, we would come back to the board just for one last opportunity to have a discussion.
Okay, make sure that we're capturing
Yep.
everything. And I'm happy with the methodology that they use. I think a high-quality survey is really important. People who, what do you call that when you
Opt-in.
opt in? Yeah, not the best data comes from that. So it's good to read their memo and what their process consists of. And I'm hoping that we're going to have some pre-survey kind of marketing or push out to the public that this might be coming their way. And we really, really want as many people as possible to answer the phone and go through the survey or whatever it is. So I think that might be yet another thing for the PIO's department to consider. And I think that's it. That's all my questions. But I do want to say, I think that they did a great job for the last couple of surveys that we have used Probolsky for that firm. So I look forward to working with them again.
I just wanted to add one comment to your question about the timing of the surveys. I think it's an important question, and we talk about it internally. The kind of baseline question Stephen talked about, that 75% that kind of it remains the same so you can baseline and see where your progress is over time. That other 25%, I think is really important for us because not just the landscape for the Truckee Donner PUD, but the world we live in, our community, it changes and it evolves over time. And so the last survey, like Stephen talked about, was really focused on the strategic initiatives, the undergrounding consideration, broadband, service reliability. And so we've even changed some of our strategic initiatives since 2020. We've fulfilled some of those, and we're still working on some of them. But things like, concerns with local wildfire risks, things like the energy landscape, renewables, carbon-free energy, those terminologies are all evolving and changing. The economics have changed, so we really want to make sure that portion of the survey, when we see things have changed and the data we had in the past on that isn't really reflective of what current circumstances are, I think it's a good indication that it's time for a new survey. Courtney?
I do have a couple questions. On a previous slide, it said that your targeted outreach, which is more direct outreach as opposed to the opt-in, is 1,000, and you're hoping for 400 responses. Did I read that right?
Correct.
How is that 1,000 determined?
They do a demographic cross-section analysis of our customer base. And if 10% of our customer are X, then 10% of the responses come from X. YZ, I could keep going, but so a lot of our community surveys are opt-in, where they send out a link and say, hey, we want to hear from you, and often an organized campaign by one special interest group can kind of stuff the ballot box. This way, they call until they get, to give one example, enough women and enough men to satisfy the survey. And then they move on to the next demographic and the next demographic. So it takes about 1,000 contacts to get completed surveys where they have enough in each demographic to be able to then have a 95% confidence level.
And so those buckets, if you will, are random
Yes,
that they're pulling?
they're
Okay.
pulling random.
Okay.
Correct.
And then, will there be any open-ended questions at the end of the survey? And have you done that in the past? Because you can glean a lot of information from open-ended and how people feel.
I remember seeing lots of written comments because every question has the ability to add comments, or a lot of them did. I don't remember if we had a fully open-ended one or not.
Yeah, I don't recall, great question. I don't recall kind of a specific open-ended question. We, like Stephen said, through phone interviews, written responses, email responses, there's an opportunity for additional comments. Something we should consider, and we can definitely reach out to Mr. Powolski and see how effective those are in surveys like this.
And then if there is that opportunity, that's harder to capture in a vocal phone call, in a written format for others to read and compile email that's or whatever, where it's written. They can be really valuable. I just wasn't sure if the district had done that in the past. And then the 2020 survey, because you have relatively new directors up here who weren't part of that. And if you're going to ask us kind of our thoughts about the next survey coming forward, can we get a copy of that and those results?
From the previous survey? Absolutely.
Of the survey, and so we can kind of see what was asked in the past, what was, anyway, and then go from there.
They may still be available on our website. I don't know, but we can definitely forward those out.
And then I have 3 documents. I happen to have just been looking at them. One lists the survey questions. One is the presentation given to the board on the final survey results. And then the third is the report. So I'm happy to share all 3.
Okay, great. And then just one last comment about opt-in, and I know people who are really interested will respond. And I understand that you could have one sort of voice who are all really interested in something, but it's still feedback. And it's still people who are interested in taking the time to give their thoughts. And so even though I know that it sounds like that the surveyors want to go a slightly different direction in the pool of who's going to respond, but feedback is feedback. It's good to hear, at least up here from a board level. Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, getting a copy would be very helpful for me because it'll give me kind of a flavor of where we're headed with it. And then my question was, what is the strategy for receiving input? I heard email, I heard phone. Is there a particular process, or, I mean, how are you getting the information directly?
Sure. So I did attach the proposal to the staff report, and they have a section on there about multi-mode survey methodology, where studies and research and surveys have found that if you do phone, online, which is email or text, written as another option, if you offer them all to all of your demographic, you have a better chance of getting a good statistically valid response. So they use them all. I don't know if one's deemed better than the other. I just know that the combination of them all is deemed better.
Nice, good questions. Good ask on the old info because I sure as heck don't remember. So, yeah, I think this will be great. Good update. And what's everyone's kind of appetite on maybe a workshop or sticking with the one-on-one with calls with Stephen, or is everyone good with that? For the questions, the questions coming up. Just want to make sure we all have the right opportunity to kind of flush those out, and I think I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think I'm okay with it, but I just wanted to confirm with everybody
Well,
else.
I think, if I recall, we're going to have another board item regarding this before the survey goes out. And you will present the questions, and that will be following all the one-on-ones with the board members. Is that correct?
Correct. And so I believe the process is we'll give you the information, give you some time to digest it, get some individual feedback, and, stay within our rules and regulations in doing that, and then bring it back ideally, May 6th as a workshop.
So I just want to be clear, the May 6th workshop will enable us to still powwow about things. And if we want changes, changes will be able to be made at that point. That's not like, this is the survey that's going out. Okay. Thank you.
I just want to clarify, from the board, it's ideas. We are not crafting the questions. We are not the experts in surveys and having language and avoiding bias and that. I just want to be clear about that. But it would be ideas, what we want to learn from it. Okay, the higher level, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, the last survey, that portion of it was the strategic initiatives. And so we had done community circles, we had done other public outreach on how different subdivisions or different demographics of our community prioritize some of the strategic initiatives, where they supported them or not. For this round, we're well on our way on a lot of these strategic initiatives. Like I said, we fulfilled some of them. Some of them are continuous, kind of evergreen. If there are items the board would like to hear feedback on, a topic, you don't have to craft the questions. I mean, if you do, that'd be great. But if you don't have that, have it distilled down to that level, but certain topics that you're interested in. And we'll give you the old survey so you can see what the baseline questions are, and give you an opportunity to kind of review what the product was out of the last survey. And so before we go out and launch to the community, Stephen and I would both love to hear from kind of the things the board thinks are priorities and what you'd like to hear feedback on. And we'll kind of, obviously there's a limitation to how many questions we can ask and how effective that works in a survey of the community. But just got pointed out to me by Martina that the last survey did have an open-ended question at the end of it with, what do you think is the most important issue in the community? And so, as it relates to Truckee or PUD or our business. So there's an opportunity there. I think what we want to accomplish is that if there's something the board wants to hear back from the community that votes for you, this is an opportunity through a survey approach.
One last question. You've got community events coming up, Truckee Day, Big Truck Day. Will surveys be solicited at events like that, or is it strictly email and phone?
No, it's hands-off. Once the survey is designed and launched, Probolsky Research has a talented, qualified team that does this. And so we're hands-off on that part. They go out, they find the right cross mix, they conduct the surveys, and then present the results.
Yeah, just as we go through this, I don't, it was earlier this summer or fall, but I had a phone survey come through on my phone from a local nonprofit, and I will tell you, it was exhausting. The number of questions, the type of questions. So just a caution that these things can go both ways, and the type of questions and the number of questions is super important to keep people engaged, because the quality of the answers will diminish as people get frustrated. I was certainly like, oh my God, really? But the person on the other side of the phone was just doing their job. It was quite brutal. But great feedback from the board. Courtney, you have one more?
I do. I have one more question. You just reminded me of something. For the email portion that is sent that way. Does this organization use SurveyMonkey for those kinds of things? A lot of people are familiar with that. No.
I don't know what platform they use.
ease of
You
use
know, I
and-
know they've done thousands of these, so
Okay.
it's English, Spanish, it's accessible, and they follow the rules in getting it out. So, but I don't know the program.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Any further items to discuss?
Just one other comment I'll mention, and that is the hospital is doing the same thing right now. So you might want to take a look at timing so that, it makes your results good.
We are aware of that, and we're aware of some stuff planned later this summer, which is why we're timing in between.
All right. We have an item that has been recommended to us.
I will move that we authorize the general manager to execute a professional services contract with Probalski Research as per staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Stephen. All right. Item 16, consideration award a contract with West Coast Paving for the district asphalt replacement 2026 project.
Good evening, President Laliotis and members of the board. Brian Yan, General Services Manager, representing the District Facilities Department. I'm here tonight to present action item number 16, award of district asphalt replacement 2026 construction contract. The fiscal year 26 budget for the water utility has budget capital funds for life cycle replacement of deteriorating asphalt for facility access roads and district asphalt parking areas. Staff have identified 2 water locations where asphalt replacement is recommended due to the asphalt area being in poor condition with heavily alligatored areas or with many large cracks that can no longer be filled. Additionally, several areas of asphalt in the yard at the district headquarters are in poor condition and due for replacement. The district asphalt replacement 2026 project covers approximately 16,185 square feet of asphalt. It's at 3 locations. This year, Falcon Point Tank in Tahoe Donner, Herringbone Tank also in Tahoe Donner, and here at district headquarters in the East Yard. These 3 photos kind of represent that alligatored term that I used for the asphalt descriptor. Once the asphalt gets to this level, it's pretty much near the end of its useful life. It's at the end of its useful life. You can see on the left side photo attempts at sealing the cracks, and often what happens is you get to the question of, where do I stop? And at that point, you either stop maintaining the asphalt and let it deteriorate and turn into potholes, or replace. Tonight, we're here to talk about replacement. The district issued a request for bids on February 5th, 2026 for district asphalt replacement 2026 on the district website. The request for bids was published in the Sierra Sun newspaper the following week. Bid opening for district asphalt replacement 2026 was held at 2 p.m. on March 17th, 2026. 7 bids were received. All bids received were considered responsive. And I will clarify, there was a small discrepancy on the original staff report published to the board. After the board books were published, it was determined that one bid submittal thought to be non-responsive was actually responsive. The responsive bid was not the lowest bid received, but staff report was corrected after having been published. West Coast Paving from Reno, Nevada was determined to be the lowest responsive bidder with a bid of $122,942 for the base bid plus the additive alternate. And this is a list of the 7 bidding contractors. West Coast Paving from Reno, Nevada, Heavy Equip from Truckee, California, Hanson Brothers Enterprises from Grass Valley, California, Lakeside Paving and Sealing Incorporated from Carnelian Bay, California, Alcon Construction and Engineering, South Lake Tahoe, California, B&M Civil LLC, Rancho Cordova, F.W. Carson, Incline Village, Nevada. These items support the following objectives and goals identified by the district. I'm not going to read them out, but they're available for review. Fiscal impact. The fiscal impact of the award of contract for asphalt replacement 2026 is the total bid amount of $122,942 plus a change order authorization of 10% or $12,294 for a total construction contract authorization not to exceed $135,236. This agenda item qualifies as a capital expenditure, whereas periodic asphalt sealing and crack fill is an expense expenditure. A little clarification. Additional fiscal impact, the board approved fiscal year 2026 water capital expenditure budget for asphalt replacement at $120,000. The 2 water sites portion of the not to exceed recommendation is $66,842, resulting in an underspend to budget of $53,158. The board approved fiscal year 2026 electric capital funds for the district office facility at district headquarters at $100,000. The headquarters portion of the not to exceed recommendation is $68,394, resulting in a $31,606 remaining in this capital expenditure line item. And the recommendation for you this evening is to authorize the general manager to execute a construction services contract and associated documents with West Coast Paving for district asphalt replacement 2026 for the bid amount of $122,942 plus a change order authorization of 10% or $12,294 for a total contract authorization not to exceed $135,236. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. All right, is there any public comment on item 16 tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to director comments. Jeff?
Let's fix the alligator asphalt. So I'm good with this. Thank you, Brian.
Steve? Krista? Or Courtney, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question. Is this item, I mean, it says replacement 2026, is this item being sped up because there's extra monies, leftover monies? Or is this planned somewhere in this year, or is it being?
It's a budget item that's been planned over the past several years for annual inspection of problem areas, identified areas that are recommended for asphalt replacement. The intention is to catch up on some prior years of potentially not replacing asphalt. And then once we catch up, maybe we'll slow down on our efforts for a little while until we need to re-engage.
Okay, so it was planned at this time.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Krista, anything? Yes. Thanks, Brian. Great staff report. Appreciate it. Obviously, I think we've got a pretty good value bid going there. So I don't have any other comments. So we have a recommendation from staff.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
I'll second it in the amount of 136, 236.
135.
135.
Yes, sorry, my head was in the way.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. All right, item 17, consideration of rejecting all bids for the Martis Valley Substation Civil Construction 2026.
Good evening, President Aliotis, members of the board. Josh Campbell, Senior Electric Engineer. This is action item number 17, Martis Valley Substation Civil Construction 2026. We'll start with background. Martis Valley Substation was commissioned in 1982. It is the only substation of the 4 substations in the district that is served by the 120 kV transmission system. It is the critical backup for Donner Lake and Truckee substations to help ensure redundancy and reliable system operation. Amongst other services, Martis Valley Substation serves the airport, Truckee Sanitary District Facility, the Town of Truckee Administrative Building, as well as various neighborhoods, including Sierra Meadows, West and East River Streets, Truckee Crossroads Shopping Center, and the Coldstream Housing Development. There's a map here, essentially everything south of the river. There's been various improvements made since the substation was constructed, protective relay upgrades, in the 2017-2018 timeframe. There's been some seismic anchoring done. General maintenance and testing that takes place at all of our substations. The substation is nearing the end of its service life, and it is now the only remaining substation that has not undergone a rebuild project. Staff started in 2021 working with the engineering consultants to develop the complete scope of work for modernizing the substation. Some of the details of what that modernization rebuild incorporates: relocation of the outdoor 12.5 kV distribution bus and the existing 120 kV protection equipment in the existing control house into an indoor switchgear and control enclosure, or SCE. Placement of the S&C Mark V high voltage SF6 circuit switcher with a vacuum circuit breaker. Relocation of the battery backup, which is currently outside in a non-climate controlled enclosure, into a climate controlled enclosure to add longevity to those batteries. Addition of a secondary electric station service. This plays a primary role in various maintenance as well as during outages. Allows the district to backfeed electricity into the controls equipment. Upgrades to existing protection equipment and the SCADA system. Civil improvements of a wide variety to address various aging infrastructure, drainage in the substation security. Provisions for future distribution feeders and possible alternative energy storage solutions. The board approved long lead time procurements of the SCE and the breaker in August of 2024. The SCE arrived in October of 2025. The left picture and the center picture, left picture is the delivery and setting it on the concrete foundation that was installed last year. The center is a picture from the inside of the switchgear portion of the SCE. And on the right is the 145 kV vacuum circuit breaker in its temporary home in the southeast corner of the yard, waiting for construction this year. The breaker arrived November of last year. Late 2024, staff identified the need to divide the project into 2 phases, principally based on delivery timeframes, but also taking into account the entire scope of the project. The foundation for the SCE had to be completed prior to taking delivery of it last fall. The full scope of the project is very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. Staff determined that was not feasible to complete in one construction season. Board awarded the Phase 1 contract to Rupert Inc. in June of 2025. So the Phase 1 civil construction was focused in the storage yard. It's in the south portion of the substation. A lot of civil infrastructure in that yard: conduits, vaults, boxes, poles for lighting and cameras, and of course construction of the concrete foundation for the SCE. Ground grid improvements took place in the south yard while excavation was ongoing. All of these were completed with no outage to the existing substation yard. Substantial completion was in October of 2025, and the notice of completion was approved by the board in January of this year. Pictures on the right are from various phases of construction in the south yard. It's an aerial view of the substation. For the phase 2 construction, the focus shifts from the equipment yard in the south to the north yard where the active substation is, and also to outside the south fence, primarily based for rerouting the feeder circuits out of the substation to the new SCE. Phase 2 construction includes a laundry list of items: demolition of the outdoor 12.5 kV distribution bus, that's highlighted in yellow in the aerial photo. Civil improvements for the new breaker to be installed. Control wiring, conduits, and drainage piping in the existing yard. The control wiring essentially throughout the entire yard will be replaced, as it all has to be rerouted into the new control enclosure. Rerouting and reconductoring of the feeder circuits out of the substation from the new SCE. The switchgear and control enclosure incorporates all of the functionality and more of the old outdoor bus work. But by where the location was chosen to put that equipment, all of the feeder getaways currently exit to the east from the overhead distribution bus. They have to be rerouted entirely, so we will end up digging up most of the area outside the south substation fence. Everything inside the south substation fence was done during phase 1 construction. Substation security upgrades, principally cameras and lighting. The existing substation lighting is quite inadequate. The cameras will all be replaced with top-of-the-line new modern cameras. Testing and commissioning of all the new equipment, including the SCE. Grading and paving in the substation yard. When we remove the outdoor distribution bus, we plan to pave that area. It's currently gravel with concrete foundations. That will help. Flat paved storage is at a premium in Truckee, and so every part that we can keep that's inside and secured inside of a fence is advantageous to the district. Overall, the scope of the project, reliability will be greatly improved. Outdoor distribution bus is very susceptible to wildlife and weather, amongst other things. A lot of exposed, energized parts will now be inside a weather and critter-proof building. Operability and maintainability, there's an auxiliary transfer bus in the switchgear and control enclosure. Move circuits at the substation or take circuits offline for maintenance. A lot of the maintenance that's done on a periodic basis requires de-energization typically. Some of this, a lot of this can be done with this new equipment, can be done with the substation still in service and no outage to customers. The SCADA hardware is being completely modernized from the existing 1990s vintage equipment. It's all pre-wired for future supervisory control. Security, like I said, lighting and camera upgrades. Scalability, there are 2 additional bays in the switchgear that can be used for future feeders out of the substation or alternative energy solutions such as a battery energy storage system. Timeline, February 13th of this year, the bid was issued and posted on the website. It was advertised in the Sierra Sun the following week. March 4th, 2026, pre-bid site meeting was held with 3 potential bidders that attended. A clerical error was discovered just prior to that pre-bid meeting. When bids are posted on the TDPUD website, the website offers for prospective vendors to register to receive notifications when bids are posted to the website. Due to that clerical error, those notifications did not go out at the time the bid was posted. When staff determined this, staff immediately posted those notifications, chose to extend the bid period by 1 week and hold a second pre-bid site meeting to provide additional opportunity to prospective vendors for the project. That pre-bid site meeting was held on March 13th of this year. 2 bidders attended. Between those 2 pre-bid meetings, there was 1 company that attended both, so it was a total of 4 companies between the 2 pre-bid meetings. Bid opening was held March 24th. The district received 2 bids, RK Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $2,482,400, and Rupert Inc. in the amount of $2,038,795. Total of 2 bid responses was substantially less than was expected. The Phase 1 project received 4 bids with a much smaller scope of work. Staff reached out to a number of vendors that we either communicated with during the bid process or had bid previous projects of a similar nature in the district to solicit feedback. And the feedback that we received was that they either did not know the bid was out or they did not have adequate time to prepare a response. Staff determined that there was a large correlation between that and the notification clerical error. Staff talked about this in length. It is the recommendation of staff to rebid the project, to broaden contractor participation, provide an opportunity to validate the pricing on the project, and ultimately to provide the best value to the district. Rebidding the project is associated with a delay to construction, which staff estimates to be in the area of 4 to 6 weeks. Staff recognizes that we have still a 5 to 6 month period to de-energize the substation and carry out the work, which staff estimates is sufficient to do so. Fiscal impact, there is no direct fiscal impact associated with rejecting all bids. Staff intends to rebid the project and bring a proposal to award this contract to the board at a future date. Capital budget for electric fiscal year 2026 of $16.7 million included $3.3 million for the Martis Valley Substation Modernization Project. Staff's recommendation is to reject all bids received for the Martis Valley Substation Civil Construction 2026 project and direct staff to rebid the project. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Josh. Okay, is there any public comment on this item tonight? Any feedback from any of the bidders with regards to this item?
Staff reached out to a number of other vendors. We've had some contact and discussion with the bidders that did register bids.
Okay, no public comment? All right, close public comment. We'll move on to director comments. Jeff?
I think it's a good idea. I think we should reject all the bids and keep moving forward and go from there. Thank you.
Steve? Krista? Sorry.
Just a quick question. Work is expected to be completed on this summer, even with this 4 to 6 week delay, or was that never an expectation?
The expectation was for the work to be completed prior to the December holidays.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just have one question. So there is the potential for just having 2 more bids at the end. After it goes out for rebid, those who are interested, it could still be the same number we have, maybe different totals, but the same number of bidders, even though our hope is that we would have more.
It is a possibility. Staff's had a number of discussions with other vendors that are in the market of doing this type of work. And we're hopeful that we will have substantially more responses.
Okay, feel good about that. Okay.
Yes, Director Morrow.
Okay. So we had 4 companies total attend pre-bids. Is that correct? Did you solicit from the two companies that did not bid, any feedback from them?
That attended pre-bid, no.
That attended pre-bid that did not bid, you didn't get any feedback from them?
No, we did not.
And you said you did make contact with the two bidders?
There's
with regards to
been
this?
some communication between the two that did bid and district staff, yes.
And then you indicated that there was, for this specific phase, the budget was 3 million? Is that
That's
correct?
what's in the capital budget, yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, in general, I like to make sure if we're rejecting bids that, we're doing it for a valid reason. I've seen a lot of different reasons. Lack of participation has been one thing, significant protests has been another. Extremely over budget bids received compared to what was budgeted has been another item. Part of the reason I don't like rejecting bids is I think it's a bit unfair to the existing bidders who put the time and effort in to put bids in, and they've showed their cards, and now their cards are out for the rest of the bidding vendors to understand what's on the table, as well as we've indicated what our budget for this item is. Do we do engineers' estimates?
There was not one prepared for this project.
Okay, all right. So, there's a few things, I've been part of this process for many, many years, and, seen different reasons for rejecting bids. Obviously I'll go with the board's feeling tonight, but I don't like to do this process when I feel like we received, decent bids and, at reasonable costs compared to what was budgeted. So just a little concern on my part. So I don't know if there's any other feedback.
What have you, like, I mean, if I were one of those two bidders, I might not even bid again, right? That's the risk that we're most likely, we might see that.
Yeah. And another item I've seen is just lack of qualifications. That wasn't discussed tonight, but, but yeah, it's certainly, these two bidders, might back out. They might come back at 3 million. And as Josh alluded to, we don't know. We don't know if we're going to get 6 bids or 1 bid or 0 bids moving forward. So there's always that risk, which is why we have to, have this discussion.
I concur with Tony's comments, but I'd like to get a comment from Brian on what's your take on this is.
Yeah, thank you. All great comments, and I don't disagree with President Aliotis. We don't typically like to go through this process for all the reasons that President Aliotis pointed out. There's the concern for staff here, as Josh pointed out, is that we always like to maintain and present a fair and equal opportunity for interested parties to bid on our projects. It's what's fundamental to the competitive bid process. And so in this particular case, as Josh mentioned, there was an error in the notifications process, and our follow-up to entities who had earlier in the year or earlier in this process expressed interest in this project didn't bid. We reached back out and found that, as Josh pointed out, that our error was one of the contributing factors as to why they didn't bid. And so there's always a risk that when you go back out to bid on something, that the previously interested parties are no longer interested, or the bid prices change for various reasons. For the complexity of this project, the criticality of it, it's Martis Valley Substation, a big portion of our distribution system and service territory is hinged upon the success of this project. We want to make sure we have an opportunity for a broad and comprehensive opportunity for bid submittals. And I think it's in the best interest of the district for a project such as this that we have give every opportunity to vendors in this field to present or submit a bid to the district for evaluation. But as you mentioned, there's always a concern, one, that you're potentially discouraging follow-up bids because of the rejection. We're not rejecting, as President Belliota said, we're not rejecting based on qualifications or responsiveness. It's, one of the provisions in our bid packet is the district reserves the right to reject any and all bids for any reason. But this particular reason, I think, is in the best interest of our community and our service territory. These are complex projects. They're, the phase one was primarily a civil project, and we want to make sure that we're having every opportunity to evaluate the bids for the complex portion of phase two.
Question, why didn't we just extend the deadline? Why go through the process of rejection? If we recognize we had an error of the bidding, explain that. Because that was my first thought when I read the staff report. I thought, why don't we just extend the deadline?
It's absolutely a valid question. Staff did extend for 1 week, and at that point it becomes a judgment call. Based on some of the communication that we had with other vendors at that time, we expected at least 1 or 2 other vendors to bid the project. And that did not occur. And so you don't know that until you open the bids in this instance. At which point you've now opened bids so you can no longer extend, and it then kind of puts you in a different spot with making a judgment on whether or not those bids are representative, like the general manager said, of a broad pool of contractors that do this type of work.
And I tend to agree with what you said. Everything is now presented in an open meeting. And so others have access to viewing these meetings and see this information. So rejecting bids and going out, it seems to be an unfair advantage for those who didn't already bid. And to your point, those who went through and did the work and due diligence to put forth a valid proposal. I tend to agree with what you're saying about that. And if we are rejecting bids to make it more fair, I'm wondering, are we making it more fair? I don't know the answer to that, but that's kind of what I'm wondering. And so I don't know if it's fair for the people who've already bid, and now that their proposal is out there for everybody to see. So, so I'm not sure how I feel about rejecting all bids. But I would like to hear the rest on the here on the table about that.
It's all interesting, different perspectives. Our budget was public before. I mean, all of our stuff is out there, so it was known what our budget was for it. I feel like the folks who bid, it shouldn't be a shell game, or it shouldn't be like, how can we squeeze out the most money from our PUD? It should be, the bids should be, this is legitimately what it costs us to perform this service for you. So I'm hoping people aren't doing, this is how we can undercut, or this is like some sort of strategic, we can make more money off of this deal. I know we do a lot of business, of course, with, Rupert's up there all the time. We trust their work. We trust their, how they go about things and the product that they give us. I would think that they don't have to do all that work again. Their bid is going to be, they've already done that work. They're just going to do it again. And I don't think anyone is, I would hope, maybe I expect too much from people, but I would hope that their bids are simply honest reflections of the cost of the work. And it's not like we can shave off, we'll just undercut, the guys that we've seen their options there. So I don't know. Is that naive of me?
No, I think, you've got two different parties you're talking about. You've got the people who did bid, and now you beat the people who didn't.
Right.
And sure, there's a good chance that Rupert will just throw their number back in the ring. But of course, there's other vendors who may say, I can come in lower than that.
So
That's always, there's a lot of variables in this. It can go either way. I think the fundamental thing that staff is trying to bring forward is what's the best value to the district for this project. And I guess I'm feeling like that's perhaps what was bid, that was provided.
That was part of the package. They did say they wanted a broader pool, so we could, we wanted more responses so we could gauge them against each other a little bit. Is this an accurate ballpark figure that we're getting here with only 2
We had 4
responders?
attend the pre-bid, 2 chose not to bid. And so I don't believe those 2 were impacted by the error. Is that correct? I mean, since they attended the pre-bid.
It's hard to say who found out what when. The error was discovered a couple of hours before the first pre-bid meeting. And so it's some of these contractors are involved in other projects for the district and locally, and there's different opportunities to become aware of the bid documents, of the bid being posted on the website.
I wanted to add some context or a little bit more color to the conversation that was happening. That staff is in no way suggesting or concerned about there's any kind of scheme or anything like that to manipulate bids or anything of that nature. I think at the end of the day, there's just a fundamental question, and if the board definitely can give staff direction to proceed as received, we'd have to have an amended action for the board this evening. It simply comes down to an important project within our service territory that didn't receive the bidder's attention that we had anticipated. And so in terms of how robust of a response we received, staff received far less than we anticipated. If the board is comfortable with the responses we received, we're definitely will take direction and advisement from the board of directors, and we would proceed from that point.
One more sort of clarifying, which I think I've heard the answer to, but I'm not sure that I kept it in my mind. Did we hear from bidders that were like, oh, rats, we missed this opportunity?
Vendors that the team had anticipated on bidding on this who did not respond, we reached out to and indicated that they did not learn of it in time to develop a bid package for submittal.
So that's
That was what kind of triggered our reevaluation at potentially going out to a
We
rebid.
did, in fact, hear from contractors that would have bid but they missed the information dissemination phase. Okay, got it. All right.
Okay, so for the board's consideration, my concern is that you bid it in a timely fashion, early on in the season when contractors are setting up their work for the season, and to go out and rebid this year. Most contractors will have their work set up for the entire season. Secondly, if we put it off till next season, costs arise and potentially go up anyway. So it's kind of a, conundrum. I also feel that when you bid something, everybody had the opportunity, and rejecting bids for not having enough money to pay it or that kind of thing is valid, but it is within budget. So, but maybe you can comment on, do you think these contractors bidding this late in the season would bid because I would assume at this level of contractor they're set for the season on their projects?
So generally speaking, if we're going to compare to the Phase 1 construction, for example, that bid was bid in April and May of last year, and bids were open late May, and it was in June board meeting. I would say that I don't think it's too late in the season to get bids for this work. We've had multiple vendors that we have reached out to indicate their interest when asked about a possible rebid, if they would be interested in bidding that project, have responded that they would. I think there's plenty of opportunity to receive additional bids for the project. Staff is, based on the board's decision this evening, staff's prepared to rebid the project almost immediately.
Have a comment about talking about bids and contracts in open session, because we're starting to verge where we want to talk more about the companies. I mean, there are questions that I want to ask that probably are not appropriate in an open session, but would be an executive session. And so, and contracts, especially when you're comparing different companies, it seems appropriate for an executive session time. So maybe not here. I see Steve shaking his head, but there are, I think, are some questions that might, maybe there's a reason, other reasons that we haven't quite discussed here of the desire to reject bids and open it up to more versus the two that are presented, have done the work and presented. So,
thank you for the comment. I think it's important to note that staff's recommendation is not based on the nature or qualifications of the contractors. What we're presenting for consideration here this evening is simply the level of participation in the bid process was significantly lower than we anticipated. To ensure the most benefit for the district and the community, we are recommending going back out to bid, but we'll definitely, staff will consider an alternative direction. This is not based on responsiveness or responsibility of the bidders. This is simply to ensure that we are getting the competitive bid process, that we, that kind of fiduciary responsibility for our community, that we're getting a comprehensive bid on an important project like this. Outside of that, staff wouldn't have any other additional recommendations or comments on, the nature of the contractors who bid.
okay. And fiduciary responsibility is a big deal. So, yeah, thank you for that.
That's a lot of interesting things at play.
Yes. Well, I don't have anything else to add. I think I've added enough already. So we have a recommendation from staff. And so seeing as there's could be multiple directions in this vote, I think I'll do a roll call just to kind of see where we go based on if someone wants to move this or not.
I'll move staff's recommendation to reject all bids for the Martis Valley Substation Civil Construction 2026 project and direct staff to rebid the project.
We have a motion.
I'll second that motion. See what happens.
Martina, can we do a roll call, please?
Director Finn,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Randall,
No.
Director Morrell,
I'm going to say yes based on fiduciary responsibility.
President Lallier.
I'm going to say no. So, motion carries. All right. That was a good discussion. I want to thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. don't have too many of those votes, but they happen. Okay, let's rock and roll. We are moving on to item 18, consideration of adopting resolution 2026-05, approving the amended and restated pooling agreement with the Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems.
All right. Thank you, President Laliotis, members of the board. This is a lengthy presentation just because there's some details there, and I wanted to provide these details both for the board and the community because it's been a while since we've had some discussions and presentation on the district's membership with UAMPS, the Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems, and we have an opportunity and a request for revision on some of our agreements with them. So I'm going to start with a little bit of background and kind of lay out the district's membership and benefits for being a member with UAMPS. So Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems, UAMPS, the full-service interlocal agency that provides comprehensive wholesale electric energy services on a nonprofit basis to community-owned power systems throughout the Intermountain West. And we'll talk about what that Intermountain West means. UAMPS membership currently is 50 members from Utah, Arizona, California, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, and Wyoming. So it's a pretty robust membership of all municipally owned electric utilities. District has been a member of UAMPS since the year 2000. Membership with UAMPS has offered great benefit to the district and our community, our ratepayers, for many years. And some of these benefits include UAMPS does our energy scheduling for us. There's opportunity for joint participation in multiple power generation projects. So in terms of generation source diversity and opportunity there, that's facilitated through UAMPS. Negotiation of purchase power agreements, we refer to them as PPAs, with up and coming carbon free energy sources or other energy sources. So they act on behalf of the district in many cases in a joint effort in negotiating the cost of that generated energy. They forecast at the real-time energy procurements with available markets. So in advance and in real time, their staff does that forecasting, scheduling, and purchasing for us. So it's a pretty complex operation. All of this helps maintain the affordability of our energy costs. We are very proud of public power and the low cost of energy that we provide our ratepayers. And something that's not a huge part of what they do, but they do offer some additional assistance for us in meeting our regulatory reporting requirements. So a lot of the work they do in energy scheduling, procurement, and delivery helps us with our compliance reporting. There's a kind of a little carve out there, just an imagery of the Intermountain West, what that looks like for UAMPS membership. All the green dots kind of point out where they are geographically. So you can see everything. We're one of the agencies furthest to the west. Most of the membership is, you can see that cluster down the middle. It's kind of down that Interstate 15 corridor going through Utah to Salt Lake City. I kind of spoke on it already, but I just wanted to reemphasize one of the, a couple of the main benefits. It increases our purchasing power through joint action that far exceeds what we could achieve as an independent utility our size. So, we talk about our joint action groups give us, as a utility in the Sierra Nevada, a much larger voice through some of the other JPAs we're a part of in California. Well, the same goes for UAMPS. We have a lot more purchasing power and leverage as a joint action group than we would individually. And then, as I mentioned, a significant reduction in administrative and technical staffing. It would require the Truckee Donner PUD to have a much larger staff, probably another wing of administrative offices if we were to take on the forecasting, procuring, scheduling, and real-time efforts it takes to coordinate energy generation to meet load. So through that collective, in aggregate, all the membership saves a cost on that. The district is a participant in several projects with UAMPS. I've outlined a few, kind of given just a brief, a small glimpse into what we participate in. There's a lot of kind of regulatory L&R projects or administrative projects we're also a part of, but these are the key energy procurement projects. Horse Butte Wind, 57.6 megawatt wind farm in Idaho Falls. The solar project, solar falls under the FIRM project. UAMPS refers that to. It's the FIRM procurement. But this is our Red Mesa and Pleasant Valley Wind. So Red Mesa Solar and Pleasant Valley Wind project. The Vayo Heat Recovery Project is a waste heat project, 7.8 megawatts. This is a recovery generation system of heat that's already being generated. So they're using that to generate more electricity. And then the Nebo project, 140 megawatt combined cycle gas fired and a heat recovery project in Payson City, Utah. As participants in these projects, we also reserve a seat on the project management committee and the board. So we have, our proportional voice in these projects. We currently sit as the chair of a few of the projects, and it's kind of rotating in there, but we do have representation in the project management committee and strategic decisions for each of these projects. This evening, now that I've kind of laid out a little bit of what UAMPS is and what their role is for us, and I'd like to mention, we still anticipate and plan to have Mason Baker, who is the president, CEO of UAMPS, and his team come out here in the near future to give a update to our board of directors and the community on the status of UAMPS, the projects they're working on, what they're excited about, what they're concerned about. And so that'll be coming in the coming months. But wanted to give first a little bit of a layout of who UAMPS is. But this evening, we're going to talk about the pool project. And the district joined the pool project in 2005. The pool project provides an hourly resource clearinghouse where UAMPS acts as the agent for the scheduling, dispatch of resources, including purchase of any resources required to meet each member's electric system load, sale of any member resources which are deemed surplus, and utilization of transmission rights to affect resource deliveries and sales by each member. So part of that role is, we talk a lot about our NV Energy transmission agreements. UAMPS coordinates that transmission delivery as well through the pool projects. The pool projects for the district serves as a mechanism to acquire additional energy resources to meet additional load that has not already been secured through firm purchase power agreements. So this is that extra, we have our firm purchase power agreements, firm generation. When our load exceeds that generation through the pooling project is how we coordinate energy deliveries to the district. UAMPS we've been having a lot of meetings as a project management committee member and as a board member with UAMPS. We've been, that board has been discussing and reviewing the pooling project agreement and how does it effectively continue to provide the effective service to each of its members in the changing energy market. And so in recognition of that evolving energy market and anticipated changes, UAMPS staff and the project committee members have adopted revisions to the existing pool agreement language to support the mandatory participation in organized wholesale power markets. The fundamental purpose of these changes, clearly this was, as I mentioned, we joined UAMPS in 2000, but the pooling agreement has been in place since 1980, and it's definitely needs some revisions to become modernized and address the landscape, the current landscape of the energy markets. So a general update in this agreement, just in terms of language, legalese, and make sure it's all the language in there is relevant to the current landscape. Also need to align UAMPS operations with Pacific Corp's entry into the extended day-ahead market. The industry calls this EDAM. We'll talk about that in a second here, but that becomes effective in May of this year. So there's a little bit of urgency in updating this agreement so that it's applicable to all the requirements in the new energy markets. Also provide a clear modern framework for governance, planning, cost allocation, and risk management. This is making sure that it is clear for each of the members of what they're participating in and what the obligations are. Some of the primary reasons for the amendments, I mentioned Pacific Core. Pacific Core's participation in EDAM will require UAMPS and its members agencies to comply with centralized market rules. And so Pacific Core is the balancing authority under which the UAMPS membership, the majority of UAMPS membership participates in. So a balancing authority is basically a regional area that's tasked with the responsibility of ensuring load and generation is balanced so that we don't have situations within a region where there's, we've heard about the kind of revolving brownouts or requests to reduce demand through, in California a few years back, there was a pretty public issue with not enough generation meeting the load. And so they've asked water utilities, for example, to curtail water operations to reduce the energy demand in California. That was an issue with not enough generation to meet that load at that time. That's a balancing authority and an operator task and responsibility. So Pacific Core is that for the UAMPS membership. The current pooling agreement was designed for a bilateral market that does not address today's market complexity. So in the past, you have an agency that has a need for energy generation. You have another agency that has that generation capacity, and you strike procurement agreements. In the future, that's going to change because of the complexity of the market. And so this amended agreement ensures continued compliant participation while preserving UAMP's agency role. The new agreement is designed to meet the energy market requirements. That's a repeat paragraph there, but what I wanted to talk about here is that some of the new requirements under the Pacific Core entering EDAM is that not only will each of the load serving entities within the balancing authority be required to meet their own load, they'll be required to secure and procure excess generation to ensure that their forecasted load, if it wasn't accurate, doesn't put undue burden on the balancing authority and that balance of energy. So that in order to meet that requirement, UAMP's pooling agreement has to have a little bit more amended language to ensure that they have control of, or at least have consigned to them, the ability to move resources and load across their balancing authority. So participants in the pooling agreement and participation in EDAM will require all load-serving entities to meet resource sufficiency requirements, whereby members will be required to secure power generation resources in excess of their forecasted load to ensure stability of energy scheduling and resource planning within the Energy Balancing Authority. To meet these requirements, UAMP's pool project will need the ability to coordinate resources in advance to meet the aggregate load of resource sufficiency requirements for all participating members. Procurement, scheduling, and dispatching of resources to meet these requirements will necessitate UAMP's pool project members to delegate authority and consignment of all resources, where in the past transactions were executed bilaterally in a day-ahead or real-time market. So it's important to note that the district is not a load-serving entity within the Pacific Core Balancing Authority. We reside within the NV Energy Balancing Authority. So the impacts of EDAM that will become effective for Pacific Core Balancing Authority in May won't directly impact the district. But it's important to note that while we aren't in Pacific Core, we're in NV Balancing Authority that has already announced that they will be entering into the extended day-ahead market in 2028. So while the requirements and provisions of the extended day-ahead market won't impact us this year, staff recommends that we continue to participate in the pooling agreement because some of the same provisions are coming for us in 2028. Key changes to the pooling agreement include, as I mentioned earlier, obligates the participant to purchase power and resource sufficiency in excess of owned resources through UAMPS. Doesn't apply to us until 2028, but that will become effective in May of this year. The new agreement establishes formal marketing planning tools, so it will require each membership to submit an annual power purchase plan. This is basically a 1-year forecast of what we anticipate our load to be throughout the different seasons of that year. This will enable the UAMP staff to plan out and secure generation in excess of the aggregate load of all UAMP's participants. It also authorizes UAMPs to make market purchases on behalf of participants under an approved annual purchase plan. So UAMPs wouldn't have to come to the district or its membership in real time to get approval for procurement of generation sources. It would be done through the agreement and in alignment with our annual procurement plan. The district would develop its annual procurement plan based on a couple contributing factors: our integrated resource plan that the board reviewed and approved a few years ago, plus our forecast from staff based on, kind of the previous year. It's also important to note distributed cost allocations to participating members proportional to their respective responsibility for any additional costs. So while we will be complying with resource efficiency in aggregate, the cost of resource efficiency or penalties or additional procurements will be allocated to the entity or member who created that additional demand. So if our forecast is accurate or a member's forecast is accurate, you have sufficient generation, you've procured your resource sufficiency, but another entity had some unexpected load for various reasons, and it caused an additional cost to the pooling project, that additional cost would be allocated proportionally to that member that caused that to occur. So the amended pool agreement includes a provision that participants consign all of their generation resources to the pool project for UAMPs to schedule. This is an important note that Council Gross and I worked on with UAMPs to ensure district Truckee Donner PUD, the district, has some unique circumstances compared to the rest of the membership in Utah or in UAMPs. There is a carve-out or a provision that the participating member can still build or acquire new generation resources, provided that the new resource capacity does not exceed 10% of our average load requirements. And so this really is important for us in terms of our local community's interest in community solar or other generation sources within the Truckee-Tahoe region. If it exceeds the 10% of our average load, then it would require us to go to the Project Management Committee for approval. I don't anticipate that being a problem in the future, but it will require that we get out ahead of things if we're planning on additional generation outside of the UAMPS pool. So while we're not subject to the EDAM and the new wholesale market rules within the Pacific Core Balancing Authority, I think the district will continue participation will benefit the district greatly in the pool project. In terms of procurement and dispatch of energy resources to meet our local energy load requirements in excess of our firm purchase power agreements. And it will also, our participation in the pooling agreement will put us in a good position in 2028. We'll have all of these kind of provisions and kind of mechanisms within the market well thought out by 2028. We'll have some experience in our participation with the other membership of what they've seen through the Pacific Core Balancing Authority and be well positioned in 2028. There is no direct fiscal impact associated with this item. I do want to note that, the actual agreement doesn't create any additional fiscal impact. Our future participation in the extended day-ahead market with NV Energy in that balancing authority and some of the complexities of the wholesale market in the future will definitely have some fiscal impact. This particular item, in terms of the agreement, doesn't change anything in terms of the cost provisions with our membership with UAMPS. Staff's recommendation is to adopt Resolution 2026-05, authorizing and approving the amended and restated pooling agreement with the Utah Associated Municipal Power Systems for the pool project and delivery thereof and related matters. And B, authorize board president to execute the pooling agreement certificate on behalf of the district. And it was a long-winded presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate all this information. Super valuable. So any public comment on item 18? Seeing none, move on to director comments. Jeff? Thumbs up? That's it. Good enough. Steve?
I'm good with the presentation.
Krista?
Yeah, I'm good with the presentation too. I thought it was remarkably brief for the complexity of the subject. I do want to say I applaud UAMPS. These aren't words that people are familiar to hearing from me, but for stretching themselves and evolving to meet this moment. I mean, the energy markets are evolving, they're new, there's new requirements. It's new to everybody. You know, California's had more experience than a lot of the other members in the West. However, this is what our present and our future looks like. And we are going to have to change the way we think about these things and how we participate in these markets. So I am grateful for them for choosing to sort of stretch themselves in this direction, because they didn't have to. They could have left a lot of us kind of in the lurch in some ways. I had initial concerns, and they evolved around our ability to invest in local renewable energy. Those concerns have been addressed with the carve-out that Council Gross helped us create. I was concerned that we would be limited in that, since we have to be, these are long-term agreements, and now we are committed to UAMPS. And I had concerns about renewable projects continuing to be brought to us for participation. And I realized that those concerns were, they were me creating concerns that didn't necessarily exist. I mean, every single renewable energy project that we are members of have been through UAMPS. So, obviously the proof is in the pudding there in some ways. And I do believe also that they are, that their membership, the interesting part of being a member of a group like UAMPS or NCPA is that these are grassroots, these are munis, they are responsible to their own people. So if the grassroots is saying that they should be focusing on different types of generation, they're very responsive to that. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be grassroots. And I think the grassroots are getting more and more renewable. So it's appropriate. It's a good way to do it, whether or not I agree with, this is democracy in small. Like, I may not agree with the majority, but that doesn't mean that the system isn't working as it's supposed to work. That's the give and take that we all have to learn to live with. I think that in a nutshell, that's it. The concerns I have had been addressed. I'm hopeful that this, I look forward to what the next year, what we learn, not actually being thrust into the whole market for this 1 year, to sort of see how it works, and to make sure that we can learn from the experiences of our fellow UAMPS members. That's it.
I'm on. Okay, one question. So leading up to 2028, okay, we're gearing up for that. UAMPS is doing that now, and we're getting ourselves ready for that. And my question is, with the extended day ahead market and energy procurement, is it going to necessitate that we hire a procurement personnel? Because we lost one. We had some change in personnel, right, who focused on that. With this pooling agreement and the direction that UAMPS is going and that we are following for 2028, is it going to necessitate that hire, or is UAMPS taking care of that end? I'm trying to put the two together, and I'm not sure if they go together, but.
Yeah, so great question. UAMPS staff are part of the service provided by UAMPS is their staff executes the, real-time, day-ahead, extended day-ahead, and strategic procurement of our energy generation sources. Our responsibilities are to ensure that our power purchase plan, our IRP that we adopted, the Integrated Resource Plan, is delivered to UAMPS and that we are constantly and frequently giving them updates on anticipated changes in what our load might be. So UAMPS staff tracks our energy profile, our load history, and energy demand history, and uses that to forecast the future and make sure that we, in addition to our firm purchase agreements, we have a vested interest, a percentage interest in the Horse Butte Wind Project. We know that based on weather conditions, we're likely to get this amount of generation from that project. And looking at what that meets in terms of our forecasted total load, and then working with staff on how where we procure and how we procure that extra additional generation we need is something our staff works with UAMPS in advance. In the extended day ahead market, we'll have to do that plus secure additional kind of insurance generation reservations to ensure that we don't, if for some reason our forecast is inadequate or something comes up, and I'll use areas like Nevada and Arizona and Utah where you have a heat event and additional air conditioning load causes our demand or their demand to go up. That was unexpected. And so you have to have that resource sufficiency already reserved to match that additional unexpected load. For staff, our role with UAMPS is going to be to have frequent communication with them, that our energy procurement plans align with our IRP, and communicating with them any anticipated changes in demand. They will handle all the procurement. So we won't have to have procurement staff or scheduling staff. We won't work directly with the energy markets. UAMPS handles all that. Our job is not in real time, it's in advance, working with UAMPS to ensure that they understand our strategies and any anticipated changes that. That's why they want to make sure that a member agency doesn't come in with something like new generation unexpectedly, or because that can shift their whole balance of how they're handling all the membership in aggregate. So we don't want to come in with 3 megawatts of solar unannounced and mess up the balance of what they're doing in terms of resource efficiency. So our staff will be communicating with them in advance to make sure that, one, our forecast is accurate, two, it's in alignment with our IRP, and three, that we're not anticipating any other changes.
And that is a shift for us in the district, having, I don't want to say responsibility, but certainly that work to UAMPS, correct? Because that wasn't that more done in-house here?
No, it's not much of a shift there. It's actually, in terms of every member agency can work kind of as, how do I phrase that? Every agency, membership agency can work as detailed as they'd like. If you want to really get down into the day ahead interactions with UAMPS, that's an opportunity there. But with this shift in the market, much of this work has to be done in advance now. And so the real time, once we get to a certain threshold in advance of the day of purchase, that responsibility gets handed over to UAMPS and they handle that all. So it's not really a shift for us, but it definitely it changes our responsibility where we don't have to have such detailed interaction in that real time space. So our team's going to be working in planning with UAMPS, where UAMPS will work in the real time.
And then lastly, can you refresh my memory? So with this amended and restated pooling agreement, does it allow for self-generation of power to a certain percentage?
Yes. So as long as it's less than 10% of our average load, we have the provision, a carve out, that we can add additional generation to our portfolio. And so we, as the Truckee Downer PUD, aren't a generating entity that generates electricity or energy and puts it out onto the market or transmits it to other locations. That's, for us, that part of it's handled completely by UAMPS. If the community evaluated the opportunity to have a community solar project, for example, we would be permitted to do that, provided it didn't exceed that 10% of our total load. If it did, then we'd need to present that in advance with the project management committee so they could evaluate how it impacts the entire participating pool.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. I just want to step back and make sure everyone here in the public realizes that when we made this decision, back in 1991 to join UAMPS?
In 2000.
Oh, 2000, sorry. That, I think that decision has put us in a position to be where we are today. I think staff had the foresight to make that move, and UAMPS has delivered, and we continue to build on that relationship. So I think a lot of work for you and District Council. It kind of makes it a no-brainer to move forward with this, because we want to continue that success, and we have to, we have to migrate, and with and all the things that are changing, and so with UAMPS, on our side, we're able to do that. I really thank staff and council for really putting the time in, for making this carve out, so we do have the opportunity for local generation. So I think this is a really, really, really good agreement and a great relationship to continue. So with that, I don't remember if I called for public comment or not, but I'll call for it again. Close public comment. We have a recommendation from staff.
I'll move that we adopt Resolution 2026-05 as per staff recommendation, and also Part B, authorize the board president to execute the pooling agreement certificate on behalf of the district.
I'll second that.
All right, motion and a second.
Tony?
Yes.
Yes.
If I may, just one minor correction of a typo in the resolution. Section 2 confirms Brian as the district's representative to UAMPS. Just got an S at the end of his name, so just correct his name as Brian Wright and not Brian Wrights. Just,
Sometimes he writes. As, yes, with the amendment that Brian is only right, he is not rights.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thanks.
All right.
Good things. It's a juicy agenda.
Consideration award of contract for the Skater Reliability Improvement Project Phase 6.
Good evening, President Laliotis, members of the board. It's done right there.
Getting to the end already.
Scott Crow here to talk about action item number 19, award of Skater Reliability Improvement Project Phase 6 contract. Wow. Okay. The district operates 5 electric and 57 water facilities across the service territory. That includes electric substations, pump stations, well sites, storage tanks, control valves, and not included in that number are the headquarter building here as well as the corp yard. Both have fiber assets there. Monitoring and control of these facilities relies heavily on our electric and water SCADA systems. Historically, SCADA communications relied upon the circuits, dial-up telephone lines, cellular modems, and various radio systems. Some of the concerns that we have around those communication modalities are listed here: age of communication infrastructure, maintenance and support of the different technology solutions, loss of reliability, limited bandwidth, and radio licensure. So on the radio side, it's a private spectrum, so we have to maintain the licenses to be able to communicate on that. And outside of the radio systems, one of the issues too is around the locus of control, right? Every one of these things are outside of our control. They're external to us. In 2011, the district initiated a long-term communication modernization effort. There have been 5 phases to date that have been completed, and here's the dates of the board approvals for those. Tonight we're talking about phase 6, and then there are 2 more phases after that, 7 and 8. So at a high level, these are the bigger items that are part of the scope of this particular project. So installation of a little under 16,000 feet of fiber optic cable into existing conduit that we have in place, and then some new conduit that needs to be installed. Installation of just under 27,000 feet of fiber optic cable on existing poles that we have. That would be the overhead portion. There's approximately 2,400 linear feet of trenching work and placement of new conduit. And then part of that is splicing and termination of all this cable, and the testing and documentation to make sure that it's working the way we need it to work. So at the completion of 6, at phase 6, it'll bring fiber connectivity to 7 of the remote facilities. And in addition, SHRIP 6 further advances the board's community broadband initiative, partnering to bring fiber to more areas of Truckee. So here's a map of the area. I put some labels there so we kind of orient ourselves. So Truckee Tahoe Airport, you see over there in red. There's Jorger Drive, Brockway Road. So that's the area. In C24, C20, and C16, you see the yellow areas. That's where the trenching needs to happen and the new conduit needs to be put in. And then up top there in C9 and C8, that goes across the river and over the train tracks. In the original bid documents, that was included, but we had questions about permitting and such for actually doing that. And after having discussions with the electric engineering staff, it was decided that we would pull that because the 2 poles that are there in C9 and C8 that are adjacent to that crossing are scheduled to be replaced by the electric department with some metal poles. So they're going to have to go through that permitting process anyway. So what we did was we kept everything the same. We took the crossing out, but at the pole at C9, there's already a termination point in this project. So the fiber going up C7, C8 there to that pole on the C8 side is going to have a fiber slack loop. And we'll put enough fiber there so that when it comes time for them to replace those poles, we'll just string that fiber across to that splice point on C9. Bid opening was held on March 10th, 2026. There were 2 bids received, Rupert Inc. and FiberTel LLC, with Rupert being the low bidder. For the fiscal impact, fiscal year 2026 electric capital expenditure budget includes $2,750,000 for these SHRIP projects. This agenda item here is $1,223,472 less than the budget. And this difference can be applied to the SHRIP Phase 7 project in fiscal year 26-27. One of the things there will be 90 poles replaced during this project that are actually part of the electric department's fiscal year 26 annual system hardening work. So even though the cost of those poles aren't in this project, they're being replaced in the system hardening portion of this. And then additional services for inspection services will be required as well. We'll come back with what that is. And then the electric's capital reserve balance is $22.3 million as of December 31st, 2025. So the recommendation here tonight is to authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Rupert Inc. for the SCADA Reliability Improvement Project Phase 6 in the amount of $1,387,753 plus a 10% change order allowance for a total authorization not to exceed $1,526,528. And with that, I will turn it back to President Laliotis.
Thank you, Scott. All right, is there any public comment on this item tonight? All right, Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Any director comments? Krista?
Quick curiosity question. 6, 7, and 8, phases 6, 7, and 8. This is 6. Our expectation is for this to be completed this year?
Yes, the expectation is the construction would start in May with the final completion at the end of the year, so at the end of December. And that's in the bid document, yeah.
And 7 and 8 next year and the next year?
Not necessarily. We still have, the 7 and 8 are at a phase where we know where we think we want to put stuff. Everything has to be engineered, designed, everything has to go through that. So we could start the work this year on doing that design and engineering portion of phase 7, and then depending on how that went, we could go out to bid. I don't foresee that we would do that this year. Yeah.
It would just be amazing to
be done with this.
Yeah, it would.
Right.
It would. I'm just trying to get an idea for how far out in the future.
We
My
could.
patients have to, not that I'm impatient, but it would be really a big, amazing accomplishment.
I agree with you. I do feel that the potential for us to do this same thing next year for phase 7, I feel confident that we could get to that point, but there's still a lot more work to do on that.
Well, thank you.
All good.
No, great project. A lot of work, actually, I feel like, for the price that we're looking at. Just one clarification, the 90 poles that are being replaced are obviously not in this bid. They're part of the electric department's either capital or operating budget. They just happen to be 90 poles that are part of that overlap with phase 6. Is that correct?
Yeah, so every year in the system hardening project, the electric department tries to look at poles that they need to replace every year. And as you would imagine, there's quite a few around Truckee. So in conjunction with this project, what they did is they looked at the poles in this project to see which ones could be replaced. And so they scheduled those to be coincide with this project.
So all 90 poles that are being replaced are
From the system hardening.
From the system hardening, but are a benefit to this project.
100%, because the other side of that is the reason why they're being replaced is because this fiber adds additional loads to those poles. So when they do that, that's part of the engineering part of this as well, is doing the calculations of what the poles can hold, and these particular 90 need to be sized higher to be able to take some of this weight.
Perfect. All right. I appreciate this project because it, as you mentioned, it continuing our broadband initiative in an interesting way. Probably not the way that it was imagined when we first made that strategic initiative, but it's moving that goalpost.
It's an affordable, practical.
Yes, we're continuing to build a backbone that will have future, not only benefit us, but could potentially benefit others in the future. So it's a good project. All right, we have a recommendation on the board.
All moves Scott's recommendation.
Okay, we have motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Scott.
Savings is going to fix the SCADA wall on that crashed building. Yeah, I saw that on the water report.
All right, we'll move on to our final action of the night. Approval of the amended development agreements for the Soaring Ranch Phase 2 Utility Infrastructure Project and Soaring Ranch Offsite Infrastructure Improvement Project with JMAR 2 LLC.
Good evening, President Aliotis, members of the board. For this item, we are revisiting an item that was approved by the Board of Directors back at the March 4th board meeting. So I am going to kind of try to run through a lot of the background and history rather quickly in the interest of brevity. The board saw all of this information last month. So again, the Jorger Ranch specific plan covers land along Brockway Road, Jorger Drive, and Soaring Way to the south and west of the Truckee Airport. The specific plan identifies new backbone electric and water system infrastructure necessary to serve the anticipated development. Here in this figure, we have the parcels of land covered by the Jorga Ranch specific plan. On this figure, we have the infrastructure that is covered by the off-site agreement. The blue line is water and electric facilities, and the red is electric only. So Soaring Ranch is a part of the Jorga Ranch specific plan, south of Soaring Way, north of 267. Soaring Ranch Phase 1 is the existing commercial development with the Rayleighs and Mountain Hardware. Phase 2 is the land to the east of that, in between the Rayleighs complex and the lumberyard. There are 2 buildings as part of Phase 2, a single-story commercial building, about 24,000 square feet, and a 4-story multifamily residential building. Again, we have a site plan here, the commercial building closer to Soaring Way and the residential building in the back to the south. A couple of renderings that were presented to the town planning department. Again, the 4-story structure is the multifamily. Per district code, a board of directors approval is required for any development agreement where the total value of improvements being conveyed to the district for ownership, maintenance, and operation exceeds $400,000. We have the 2 separate development agreements for this project, and we do expect that the combined value of the improvements will exceed the $400,000 threshold. So the board authorized the general manager to execute the 2 development agreements between JMAR 2 LLC and the district at the March 4th board meeting. In terms of new information, after the March 4th board meeting, the district began working with JMAR 2 to execute the development agreements. During this process, it was agreed to revise the deadline for final unconditional acceptance from December of this year to December of 2027. Additional detail regarding the estimated costs and fees was also included into the revised development agreements. And these revisions are significant enough to require that the development agreements be brought back to the board for approval, which is for your consideration this evening. So again, there is no direct fiscal impact to the district. This project is subject to the normal connection fees and facility fees for new construction. In addition, the developer pays for district-furnished equipment such as electrical cable and transformers, and the developer is also responsible for other costs such as construction inspection. So the recommendation before you is to authorize the general manager to execute the revised development agreement between JMAR 2 LLC and the district for the Soaring Ranch Phase 2 project in substantially the same format as presented, and to authorize the general manager to execute the revised development agreement between JMAR 2 LLC and the district for the Soaring Ranch off-site infrastructure improvement project in substantially the same format as presented.
Thank you, Neil. Any public comment on this item tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to director comments. Anything?
Quick update, so all good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Neil. That was great. I think for the first time in a long time, I think the substantial conformance wasn't met, Steve. Okay, I see the threshold now. So we have a recommendation from board, or for the board.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Second. A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Neil. Thank you. Staff. All right. that concludes action items for the night. We will now go into closed session on items 21 and 22 as presented on the agenda.